Blake was accusing him of being hired by Tag PR, etc., to do a lot of the dirty retaliation tactics. A report on her ridiculous marketing choices, her bad attitude and junkets, her avoidance of DV.
Blake Lively wasn't just devastated, she was furious. The moment Justin Baldoni walked out of that courtroom, a free man, she reportedly broke down in tears. But what led to this heart-wrenching moment? And how did a case that seemed so solid end in such a shocking verdict? Stay tuned as we dive into the bombshell evidence that flipped everything on its head.
Was accusing him of being hired by Tag PR, etc., to do a lot of the dirty retaliation tactics that she's saying was all their fault and nothing was her fault. But now, because he's in Texas, because all of his actions, even if he did them, which he didn't, would have been done in Texas, he is moved to dismiss, and the judge has agreed. Wayfair defendants moved to sever this to transfer venue to the District Court of Western District of Texas. For those following reasons, the motion to dismiss is granted without prejudice. Now, he goes in, it's kind of fascinating to read again Blake's side of things from the judge's perspective, because he does a big summary of all the allegations, what's happened, and it reads, of course, very pro-Blake, because this is her case. So he's got to make sure he's got all of her allegations, all of the things that they're sort of leveling. And as I go through it all, yeah, none of this sounds good. This whole, we can bury you and we can get paid to do this. We can't say that in text. All this sounds bad. You still need proof of it. And this guy allegedly was the one who had the proof of it, right? He's the one who did it. And they can't find it. They're not going to see it. And furthermore, as they go through and see what Jed has responded,
the courtroom fell silent as the judge read the verdict aloud. Justin Baldoni was cleared of all allegations. The announcement landed like a thunderclap, shattering the tense atmosphere inside the packed room. All eyes immediately turned to Blake. Lively seated just a few rows back, visibly crumbling as the words sank in. Her face tightened, her eyes glistening as she struggled to compose herself. When she finally exited the courthouse, her tears and expression of disbelief painted a picture of raw emotion that quickly became the defining image of the day. It's no secret that early on, public opinion largely sided with Blake. The case seemed straightforward. Accusations of on-set misconduct that allegedly violated trust and professional boundaries. With her powerful testimony supported by what was described as strong evidence, many believed the ruling would weigh heavily in her favor. Headlines had long framed her as the victim standing against inappropriate Hollywood power dynamics, a narrative that resonated with fans and critics alike. But the verdict changed everything in an instant. Justin Baldoni walked free, casting doubt on what many thought would be an open and shut case, leaving the courtroom audience and the public in absolute shock. The reactions inside the courtroom were almost as dramatic as the verdict itself. Audible gasps rippled through the room, accompanied by a hushed wave of murmurs. A few reporters scribbled frantically, while others simply froze, their expressions mirroring the disbelief around them. Outside, journalists swarmed for reactions, cameras zooming in on every tear and every whisper of the unfolding drama. News outlets immediately picked up the story, flooding online headlines with phrases like "justice denied" and "Baldoni walks free" amid scandal. Social media predictably exploded. #up supporting Blake began trending within minutes. Fans expressed outrage, claiming the ruling failed her, while others speculated there was more to Baldoni's defense than met the eye. Blake's response grabbed as much attention as the verdict itself. Her tearful exit from the courthouse was captured from every angle, showing her shaking her head and wiping her eyes. Those close to the situation later described her as both heartbroken and furious. The stakes couldn't have been higher for her, not just legally, but personally and professionally. Her investment in the case was clear, which made her visible breakdown all the more poignant for those supporting her. It was impossible not to wonder just what had gone wrong. And yet, as shocking as it was, some insiders suggested the ruling wasn't so black and white. Whispers about new evidence floated through the crowd of reporters, sparking rumors of text exchanges and production emails that had only just come to light. What could this evidence have shown? And why wasn't it revealed sooner? as speculation. World Online and in the courtroom corridors, one thing became clear. This verdict was just the beginning of a deeper story no one had anticipated. Could the so-called bombshell that Baldon's defense team presented have unraveled Blake's entire case?
He has said Wallace is the only officer, director, employee of the company. Neither of the Wallace defendants had property in New York. Wallace figures that he was contacted by Melissa in early 2025 of August to read, analyze, and assess media and trends related to Justin Baldoni and potential stories or social media attacks on him. He reviewed all forms of media, analyzed the sentiment of the coverage, and made comments, mostly to Nathan. He saw that people on social media organically supported Baldoni and disliked Lively. Therefore, his advice was not to do anything at that time. He concluded work related to Baldoni in November 2024. He does have an understanding of what a social combat or social media plan could be, but he did not provide such a service related to It Ends With Us, Wayfair, Baldoni, Lively, or Reynolds. He did not publish directly or indirectly any information or content about Lively, Reynolds, or It Ends With Us. He also did not ask or direct anyone else to post or comment on or like any social media posts about It Ends With Us, Baldoni, Wayfair, Reynolds. He did not cause content to be provided to journalists, content creators, or media entities anywhere, including the New York Post or New York Times. Blake Lively did, though, the New York Times. He does not have a digital army in any location and does not have direct or with a team in Hawaii. Wallace states that his role is merely passive, observation, analysis, social media environment. Now, look, here's my thing. I don't really believe all that. I'll be honest. I don't. This idea that he wasn't out there creating ghost accounts to like sort of try to amplify other organic real posts seems silly to me. I understand why they're trying to sort of avoid admitting that, because that's where this whole thing comes about. But for me personally, the definition of retaliation and smear campaign would be putting stuff that's not true, would be trying to, create negative narratives that aren't realistic. And I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of that when I was reporting. So I it's hard for me to believe he did nothing. That's what he's saying. I don't know. What do you guys think? But even if he had done some of the little stuff, he'd have never snowballed into what it did without organic, genuine people reacting to Blake's real statements, her real actions.
Did Blake Lively's onset actions tell a completely different story from the one laid out in court? That's the question swirling after insider reports revealed surprising details about how she approached the filming of intimate scenes. Blake accused Justin Baldoni of stepping over the line of pushing boundaries in ways that made her feel uncomfortable and violated. But behind the polished statements and courtroom dramatics, conflicting accounts have emerged, painting a very different picture of what happened during production. Let's start with Blake's initial claim that Justin Baldoni went off script during intimate scenes, improvising actions that crossed professional boundaries. It was this very allegation that formed the backbone of her lawsuit, positioning her as someone standing up to an overreach of creativity and consent. But as courtroom surprises go, there was one element no one expected. Behind-the-scenes reports that Blake herself may have played a much larger role in those moments than she let on. According to crew members who worked on set, Blake didn't just perform in these scenes, she shaped them. Reports have surfaced claiming that at times she actively directed the choreography for certain sequences, adjusting movements and blocking positions to reflect her vision of how the scene should unfold. In some instances, sources even alleged she was quick to collaborate on the specifics of gestures and positions, proving what actions would feel authentic or necessary to the storyline. One insider described her behavior as Hanson, a word that blurred the lines between professionalism and personal comfort. And here's where it gets tricky. Blake's alleged involvement in managing the scene dynamics left some crew members questioning how her later claims in court aligned with her actions on set, while her lawsuit painted Justin Baldoni as someone who disregarded boundaries. These reports made it seem like she had maintained control and taken charge of the creative process. It wasn't unusual, one source reportedly explained, to see her step in to give notes or decide if something would work better another way. This naturally created an air of skepticism about whether Blake's on-set authority might have undermined the discomfort she later expressed publicly. critics began to whisper about the potential contradictions in her narrative, claiming her proactive role may have weakened the perceived lines between what was consensual collaboration and what felt intrusive. Could her hands-on behavior have set a tone that Justin misinterpreted or followed too closely? That depends, as always, on perspective, but the court had to consider these angles carefully. So, how do you reconcile to such opposing accounts? Did Blake's approach to shaping these moments send mixed signals about her comfort level, unintentionally clouding the claims she made later? And more importantly, could this contradiction have influenced the jury when deliberating Baldon's fate? The gap between what happened on set and how it was portrayed in court keeps raising more eyebrows and more questions.
So this idea that they orchestrated it, the idea that Jed Wallace or Melissa Nathan or any of them forced me to do what I'm doing, or countless others over the summer to report on her ridiculous marketing choices, her bad attitude and junkets, her avoidance of TV, where it's like, girl, this is what the movie's about. I understand maybe you're trying to make it seem a little bit more Barbie for the sake of making it successful, but you got to know the tone and you got to know your time and place, and she just didn't throughout that whole marketing campaign. And beyond that, she was marketing her own companies. How does that help the film? It only helps her. So all of that was tone deaf. It was wrong. And you can't blame Jed Wallace for it. Now, do I believe he did not? He didn't even like a post or do it. That seems hard to believe, I'll be honest. But even if he did a little bit of that, I don't see how that's the retaliation campaign of the smear campaign. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. But now the problem is he would be the one that they'd have to get the information for. And because Blake stupidly filed this in Texas and she made some errors, now she's stuck because she's going to have to do this by July 31st. Going straight to the bottom. Let's go to the last little line there. Sorry, it's a lot. The 30th. Lively shall have the substantial completion deadline for such discovery has already passed. In recognition of the possibility that jurisdictionally relevant facts may be revealed or have already been revealed in discovery, Lively shall have leave to amend her complaint by July 30th, limited to the existing claims alleged in the Wallace defendants. Now, here's where it's a give, because Baldoni didn't get that same luxury, but now somehow Blake's getting it against Jed, because Jed admitted in the last hearing that Jed's attorneys admitted that, yeah, all the evidence has been, all they asked for has already been handed over a while ago. So Blake's had it. So now the judge is saying, well, I know you got all the discovery, so if you can prove that he did it in New York and we can bring it here, fine. Or if you want to take your evidence and then go back and prove him in Texas, go for it. It's all up to you. I'm struggling with whether that's really fair or not. I mean, I guess it is. I'm just frustrated because he should have given that same luxury to Justin, because I do feel like Justin needs discovery to find a lot of this evidence and have his day in court to prove a lot of it, just as Blake does. Blake doesn't have any evidence. And from my observation, she stole that phone illegally from Stephanie Jones. That's my opinion.
What kind of evidence could possibly change the entire trajectory of a case like this? That was the lingering question as Justin Baldon's defense team prepared for their final arguments. And they delivered. In a move no one saw coming, they presented what's now being referred to as the bombshell evidence. A collection of emails, text messages, and on-set documentation that flipped Blake Lively's claims on their head. The evidence focused on Blake's involvement in the scenes at the center of the case. Among the items presented were text conversations between Blake and Justin about specific moments they worked on together. These messages didn't just show basic communication. They highlighted Blake's approval of certain on-set decisions. One exchange, which was read aloud in court, showed Blake not only signing off on a scene, but also suggesting adjustments to make it more authentic. This stood in direct contrast to her later claims of discomfort and her accusations that boundaries had been crossed. But the defense didn't stop there. According to their argument, video recordings taken during rehearsals revealed Blake working closely with Justin to block out the choreography of intimate sequences. Far from being a passive participant, she appeared to be an active collaborator. One who gave input, offered feedback, and even reassured Justin when moments needed to be altered for better flow. These clips, which were shown to the jury and reportedly studied at length, contradicted the one-sided portrayal of events she presented in court. The defense team's strategy was clear. Show the jury that Blake and Justin had a professional working relationship based on mutual respect and communication. By doing this, they raised doubts about the validity of her narrative, which centered on discomfort and violations of trust. Legal experts following the trial noted how this evidence could be decisive. When you have documented proof showing approval or collaboration, it's difficult to stick to claims of misconduct. One was quoted saying, after testimony concluded, "It creates reasonable doubt, especially when emotions and memory are factors on both sides." This evidence reframed the entire case, and not just for the jury. It complicated things, turning the narrative into something much less clear-cut than the media had initially presented. Did Blake's own actions weaken the foundation of her argument? That's precisely what the defense wanted everyone to think, that her active participation in these moments signaled consent, making it harder to define where lines had or hadn't been crossed. Ultimately, the court interpreted this evidence as significant enough to justify the final verdict. By showing Blake's approval, whether through direct communication or rehearsal behavior, the defense undermined her claims that Justin acted inappropriately. This revelation didn't just cast doubt on her accusations, it shifted the focus entirely, leaving the jury to question the motives behind the lawsuit itself. So, how did this evidence play directly into Justin Baldoni's acquit? The court's reasoning gives even more insight into why he walked free. Despite the firestorm of public backlash, his win ignited.
It's a very important piece of this puzzle that not enough people are talking about, and we're going to give it its due, because those texts should be admissible. I don't understand how they got them. Through a fake subpoena, through a shell corporation. It's shady as F. And that's what's problematic here for me. She wants, oh my God, because I'll admit it, I don't believe that what's his name, Wallace Jed didn't do some sort of like Reddit work. It's hard to believe he didn't do anything, but whatever he could have done didn't amount to us reading it. That's what's so frustrating. And so, but Blake, on the other hand, literally in cahoots with the New York Times. Metadata proves it. They were getting the information first, and then the New York Times didn't even give Justin the full amount of time to respond because they needed to jump on that story to get the clicks and the views. That's not journalism. In fact, TMZ knew I was subpoenaed before me. That's crazy. Where did you get that information from? There are so many pieces along the way that prove they are being just as dirty as they're alleging Justin is. But then in the court and with the judge, oh yeah, we're fine. No, this is shady. So it's incredibly frustrating. It's very, and thank God other outlets are starting to pick up this press. It is slowly getting tickled because Emily Baker, who is a little silent on this case. Some people are frustrated with why she's been silent. Some are noticing she's friends with Ryan. Is that why she's trying to play more Switzerland? I don't know. But she did a whole post calling out this, along with Molly, about how dumb it was to subpoena the creators. This is a terrible look. It's going to blow up in your face. And it is. It is going to blow up in their face. And they are starting to get more backlash. And it's yet again more examples of why she's a bully and why we reported the way we did. So no, this isn't a retaliation campaign. No one's paying me to do my reporting. This is insane what she keeps doing. Thankfully, Justin did get a win. One of his co-stars, James Brolin, Josh Brolin's father, married to Barbara Streisand, a Hollywood icon. He is supporting Justin. Brolin directed him in a short film, Royal Reunion. And he asked so many questions. He was so helpful, Brolin recalls, of working with Jane the Virgin Star. But I didn't realize he was learning, because very soon after that, the guy's directing his own stuff. So proud of Justin, because God, he's written 2 wonderful books on being a man and being courteous and teaching boys not to fear their fears. And now he's directing 3 movies. Started off with 1 episode of the Jane the Virgin. Now he's directed 3 pictures, written 2 books, does TED Talks to help people. When asked about the legal saga with Blake, I don't understand what's going on right now, but I hope it works out.
How could the court possibly justify letting Justin Baldoni walk free, especially when the case had stirred such overwhelming outrage? For many, the decision felt incomprehensible. But the court's reasoning and the defense's strategy revealed a legal logic that managed to sway the jury despite the public's expectations. The court's official position boiled down to one key issue: consent. According to the judge's final statement, the evidence submitted by Baldoni's legal team created enough reasonable doubt regarding the allegations. The leaked emails and text messages were pivotal. They painted a picture of two co-workers communicating about their scenes with a level of collaboration that raised serious questions about the credibility of Blake Lively's accusations. These exchanges weren't generic pleasantries either. They dug into specific choreography, scene blocking, and emotional beats, showing Blake's approval and even her direct involvement in shaping these interactions. But that wasn't all. The defense also called attention to on-set behaviors documented by other crew members. In their arguments, they emphasized how Blake at times took control of certain intimate moments, offering input and adjustments that were ultimately implemented. By presenting these examples, they argued that professional boundaries weren't crossed against Blake's wishes, but were navigated with her explicit contribution and leadership. For the jury, this dynamic seemingly suggested that any sense of unease Blake later claimed wasn't directly communicated or demonstrated during the filming process, making it difficult to prove intentional misconduct. That said, the court's decision wasn't without controversy. This verdict didn't just upset Blake's supporters, it sent shockwaves across social media and the entertainment industry itself. Fans of Blake, many of whom felt her testimony was compelling and sincere, called the result of failure of the justice system. Hashtags like Tact Justice for Blake and EU Hollywood on Trial quickly trended, reflecting the frustration of those who believed her narrative in full. Meanwhile, media outlets debated whether the introduction of mutual consent as a key argument set a dangerous precedent in cases concerning professional boundaries. Adding to the complexity, the court relied heavily on legal precedent to arrive at its decision. The defense cited previous cases in which collaborative dynamics on set were used to show implied consent, particularly in creative environments that require actors to establish trust and improvisation. Legal experts were quick to weigh in, some praising the verdict for following strict interpretations of the law, while others condemned it for undermining the emotional nuances of workplace discomfort. One attorney noted the court didn't dismiss her claims. They simply couldn't connect those claims to evidence of wrongdoing under the law. The result left the public deeply divided. On one side, those who supported Baldoni applauded the defense team's ability to find and use evidence that many initially overlooked. On the other, critics warned that the case could discourage future actors from coming forward with their own concerns about on-set behavior. What does all of this mean for Hollywood? The verdict raises more than a few questions about consent, power dynamics, and the kind of evidence required to validate professional boundaries in the entertainment world.
Anyway, I digress. We will get there in a second. But now I'm actually mentioned in this from his own team, Justin's team, to notice that, yeah, they are doing this. Rather than actually get to the real subpoenas, they're still out there trying to find evidence, which doesn't exist. Clearly, I know it doesn't exist with me. Doesn't exist with them. This period, especially in question, I don't know what they're thinking. There was no retaliation, it seems. Because there was a text saying we can bury anyone doesn't prove they did. The internet reacts the way they do. That's what's so frustrating, why I've been so passionate about this. We reacted to Blake's own words, not to Justin Baldoni's PR campaign. It's offensive how dumb she thinks we all are. All people who reacted genuinely to what Blake did that summer. We're all part of a retaliation smear campaign. Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that. Finish it in the comments. Not a sponsor, but I like that. Miss Lively and the Jones Party refusal to timely and properly schedule depositions has made the current deadline for completion of depositions unattainable, which is August 14th. Therefore, the Wayfair parties do not oppose the motion to the extent it seeks an extension to such a deadline to September 30th, as proposed by the motion. However, the motion contains no legitimate basis to extend the deadline past this, yada, yada. Anyway, there's a lot of argument about this. And now there's a new mention that literally just dropped from the judge saying, well, everything should be compiled by the 1st for documents, and then depositions no later. It must be completed by the 30th of September. So he's starting to put definitive, here's what they are. Give me your final arguments, because no more arguing, delaying. These are your deadlines.